all of your final projects are due, you're studying for exams, but get enough sleep, right? Completely avoiding pathogens that cause, and viruses and bacteria that cause common colds and infections is not possible.
Welcome to TSU Human Performance Sports Science Podcast, where we dive into the fascinating world of sports science and innovation, right here at Tennessee State University.
We are your hosts,
I'm Neil Monet
and Franka Sindicic, and today we're taking you on an exciting journey to educate, entertain, and keep you up to date of happenings right here on our campus.
In each episode of TSU HPSS, we'll bring you exclusive interviews with our expert faculty, coaches, student athletes, and our students from our departments who are making stride in this field.
You will gain the insights into the latest training techniques, nutrition strategies, and sports psychology breakthroughs that are now shaping the future of sports performance.
All while bringing it to you from an HBCU perspective. What's up, yo? I hope everybody survived this week of finals, and I hope you're surviving the cold. For today's podcast, we're gonna talk a little bit about your health, a little bit about some good habits concerning your health, and how to survive this cold. For today's podcast, we're having Dr. Dickson as a guest. She's an associate professor in health education and health promotion. So how you doing, Dr. Dickson?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody.
We're glad to have you too. So just to start, let's talk a little bit about you, a little bit about your professions and where you're coming from and how did you get in at TSU?
All right. Well, thanks for having me. I'm Dr. Dickson. I've been at TSU now for 7 years. This is my first year as a tenured associate professor, which is really nice. I'm originally from Hawaii, born and raised on the island of Maui. I did my undergrad in Colorado. Like a lot of our students, I was interested in a clinical route. I wanted to be an athletic trainer. So my undergrad was in human performance and wellness with a concentration in athletic training. I was a student trainer at my university for the 4 years that I was there. And then I moved to Tennessee because my advisor in Colorado took a job at Middle Tennessee State University to be their program director for athletic training, and she helped me secure a graduate assistantship.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got my master's there in exercise science and health promotion, and I always knew that I wanted to get a PhD. Mm-hmm. Only 1% of the American population has their PhD.
So you wanted to be...
I wanted to be part of that, at least 1%. But also when you look at and break that population into females, it's even less than 1%. But then when you look at racial minority groups, like my ethnicity, Native Hawaiian, it's even smaller, right? So I think representation is really important. I had a full ride undergraduate scholarship because I was a Native Hawaiian female. They paid for my entire undergraduate education. And so that's always been a goal of mine, to find a way to give back to the Native Hawaiian community via my research, via my career path. And so to show other girls on Maui, to show other Native Hawaiians that we can achieve the highest levels of education, that was always really important to me.
That is such a nice story and very inspiring, definitely. Since I also want to get my PhD, so hearing this from you, it's very inspirational.
Thank you.
So what did change your athletic trainer perspective and wanting to be an athletic trainer to actually teaching now?
Yeah, I don't think that I ever knew I was going to be a teacher. Like when I wanted to get my PhD, I don't think I was cognizant of the fact that most people who get their PhDs become teachers. Like teaching was not something I ever considered or thought about. I thought I would do research, but I had a really amazing mentor at Middle Tennessee State University who was an educator. He had background in training in education. He taught K-12, and he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. He observed me in the classroom setting and saw strengths and really helped me to foster those strengths and taught me about pedagogy, taught me different classroom management techniques, and I give him a lot of the credit for where I am now as a teacher. A lot of, I think, the things that I do in the classroom that works were learned skills from him.
Oh, yeah. Well, however, he did a great job because I do love taking your class.
Thank you.
And I love your notes that you prepare for the classes. And it always, after I walk out of your classroom, I always felt like 85 to 90% of stuff really sticked and stayed with me. And I can probably still talk about the advisement and about health and vitamins that you taught me in your classes because of the writing, and I see it visually and I remember it. So, and I hear it also coming from you. So it's basically 3 ways that you're putting it in our brains. So that it
And
would
we also experience it in real life. Like we come to some situation where those advice help us. So let's talk about your style of teaching. So
Okay.
how your path help you understand what was your style of teaching, because it wasn't your first idea at first. So
Yeah.
how did you find out your style of teaching?
Really, it was trial by fire. I mean, I really honed my style of teaching through doing, my early on at MTSU, you don't get a lot of training as a graduate teaching assistant. They kind of just throw you into it and you learn as you go. And so I always want to be good at what I'm doing. And if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. So I learned how to teach by watching, mimicking, and emulating those around me who I thought were good teachers, right? So my very first class I ever taught at MTSU was racquetball. And I laugh about this because I had never even played racquetball before. And they're like, here, go teach racquetball. And I'm like, oh my goodness, okay. So my class was on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And on Mondays and Wednesdays, I would go and attend another instructor's racquetball class. And he had a lot of experience.
Okay.
So I would watch how he would teach his class. I would watch the drills. I would record like the instructions and the coaching style and teaching technique that he had. And then I would mimic it, like word for word almost at first, because I really had no idea what I was doing. But I think the best way to learn is to do. So that's originally how I honed in on my teaching style. But now I try to always put myself in the shoes of my students, because it wasn't that long ago. It feels like it was a long time now, but it wasn't that long ago that I was on the other side of the podium, right? And so I want to eliminate any barrier to success as much as I can, while at the same time making sure that my students take personal accountability, right? Because education, whether it's in the K-12 setting or higher ed, the purpose of education is to prepare you for the real world, to prepare you and help you to develop job readiness skills. And out in the real world, nothing is going to be handed to you. Mm-hmm. You have to have the skills and the drive to earn it. So you have to do that in my class as well. But at the same time, you don't have to write every single thing that's on my slide, right? So you mentioned my notes pages.
Yes.
I think that's one of the things that majority of my students always say they appreciate.
Yes.
Because I think note-taking skills is something that's not taught in the K-12 setting. So we can't expect you to know what's important to write when we're covering such a depth of information.
Yeah.
So I would rather you be able to focus your attention on hearing what I'm saying, relating the material to your real life, which is something that you pointed on, that everything that we cover in my class has real world translation. And that's what I love about the classes that I teach. And that's what I love about where I am in this season of my career, is that now I'm teaching classes that I genuinely enjoy teaching. I'm teaching classes that you, as my students, actually use in your life, right?
Would you remind them what are those classes that you teach?
Sure. Some semesters I teach are freshman level health and wellness. our 1510 class, but I teach that as a online asynchronous class. I think post-COVID, right? All departments, all programs need to have a online presence because our students really command that after having a online only education that we had to transition to during COVID. And so we can't lose that. But I also teach 3030, which is personal and community health. It was formerly called consumer health. So there's a little bit of that consumer health aspect. And it's basically helping my students identify health fraud, health quackery, misinformation and disinformation in the health marketplace.
Okay.
I also teach my favorite class, and probably my most popular class, which is 3050, family health and sexuality. So it empowers my students with the tools necessary to protect and maintain their sexual and reproductive health now and through their lifespan. And then I also teach 2 graduate classes, epidemiology and aging and wellness.
So back to speaking of health, we see that all of your classes are based on health at the end. And back to Neil at the beginning of the podcast, he was talking about cold season, which is currently now. So we want to ask you, what are your recommendations how to keep away from the cold and getting all of these viruses and bugs in your system? And if you get a cold, if you catch it, how to get rid of it, or what to do to prevent it?
Yeah, we are in the midst, and we are pretty much at peak for cold and flu season. So we can't live in a bubble. So completely avoiding pathogens that cause, and viruses and bacteria that cause common colds and infections is not possible. But there's a lot that we can do to reduce our risk of becoming sick, or shortening the duration and severity of a cold if we do become sick. This is controversial. I don't know when it became so controversial, but I mean, one of your first lines of defense and one of the best primary prevention methods for colds is vaccines. So I know people have very strong opinions on vaccines. If you haven't gotten your flu shot, now's the time to get it, because flu season typically peaks January and February. And so you want to be exposed to the vaccine now so you can build up the antibodies and have your full line of defense when we reach peak cold and flu season.
Right.
We also have the new boosters for COVID. Again, I know, very controversial, but you can get them both at the same time. You can get them at pretty much any pharmacy, local clinic. The health department down the road, Lens Public Health Department, has shot clinics all the time. They have pop-up clinics in the community. So that's your best go-to line of defense for those viruses. Now, if you are just wanting to implement some lifestyle and behavioral actions to help strengthen your immune system and prevent getting a cold, it's really simple. However, it's things that a lot of college students, especially right now during final season, because you have all of your final projects are due, you're studying for exams, but get enough sleep, right? The best thing you can do to protect your immune health is take care of yourself, and that's getting your minimum of 8 hours of sleep a night and managing stress. Stress is unavoidable, especially for college students. You guys are juggling a lot of balls, and you can't avoid stress, but you can definitely manage it. And one of the best ways you can do that is to stop procrastinating. Whatever you've been putting off, whatever projects you're waiting to do last minute, don't do that. That added stress and anxiety that you're putting on yourself could be the tipping point that knocks down your immune system and makes you more susceptible to a cold.
So you're saying that what we think is actually taking a break and procrastinate, avoiding those situations that put us in a stress position, those are what putting us in a stress position. So
yeah, that's the actual decision that might cause you to get a cold, right? Like, the more you put things off, the more pressure you create because now you're under a deadline. That's unnecessary stress and anxiety. Instead, manage your time and break that project up and do an hour a day for the next 5 days and get it done ahead of time. If you've ever taken a class with me, especially my online classes, I stress every week in my weekly catch-up videos to work ahead.
True.
I make all of the assignments available on the first day of class, and I encourage you to work ahead. And many of my students by midterms have all of the weekly assignments done because they've been diligent and proactive, and they are not procrastinating. The other big thing that you can do is super simple, but for whatever reason, even post-COVID, and maybe we've gotten lax post-COVID and we're not doing as much as we should, but wash your hands, right? Every surface that you touch, we call those fomites. Fomites are inanimate objects that can harbor and carry pathogens like bacteria and viruses. So that public keyboard in the computer lab, that doorknob in the bathroom, that light switch in every room, lots and lots of hands have touched it. And not everybody washes their hands after they go to the bathroom. So there could be fecal E. coli on that. There could be there could be all kinds of nasty things. And the simplest way to protect yourself is to wash your hands and avoid touching your face, because anytime you touch your face, you've now helped those pathogens travel to those mucous membranes and give them an express route into your body to possibly cause an illness. But also, like, wipe down, clean, sanitize your high touch areas in your offices, in your car, in your bedroom, in your bathroom, in all those areas that get a lot of touch throughout the day.
So maybe if we don't have access to any type of sink so we can wash our hands, maybe having a hand sanitizer in our pocket, in our bag would be helpful, or is it not?
Yeah, hand sanitizer is good if it's all that you have.
Okay.
But good old-fashioned warm water and soap is even better. I don't know if you've ever watched like the TikTok videos or the YouTube, sorry. Boy, I went all the way back there to MySpace. Have you ever watched the YouTube videos where they show someone who doesn't wash their hands and then they touch a piece of bread? Someone that uses hand sanitizer and they touch a piece of bread, and someone who washes their hand singing happy birthday 2 times through with warm water and soap, and they touch a piece of bread, and then they let cultures grow on those pieces of bread. And it is alarmingly disgusting. The one where they didn't wash their hand is just covered with all kinds of growths. The one where they use hand sanitizer, there's a lot of growth, but less than the first one. And then the one where they wash their hands with soap and water has the least amount of molds and bacteria and pathogens. Yeah, watch that video.
Yeah, right.
It's very eye-opening. It's really, really eye-opening. In my previous job at another university, we would have students, we had a powder that when we shine it under the black light, it made any viruses and bacteria on your hands glow fluorescent. And so we did this same activity with, have a third of the class wouldn't wash their hands, a third of the class would use hand sanitizer, and a third of the class would wash, and you could see the glowing difference between all three. Yeah, so hand sanitizer is good, but best to wash your hands. Every time you use the bathroom, every time before you eat, because you're going to be touching food that's going to go in your mouth, and just periodically throughout the day. So every time I come back from class, because I've touched the computers in the classrooms, I've touched doorknobs, I go to my office, drop my stuff, the first thing I do is go to the bathroom and wash.
Well, that's a good tip.
Yeah.
And speaking of, so this is how to prevent the cold. But what if we get it? What would you do then? Would you take any supplements? Would you take any vitamins? What is your opinion about it?
Yeah, let's talk about supplements, because there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation when it comes to supplement use. One, to use when we are sick, but also to prevent illness and to strengthen the immune system. I think 2 supplements that are often brought up when we're talking about preventing or treating colds is vitamin C and elderberry. So I like to always look at the research. So let's talk about the research behind the 2. So let me ask both of you. When it's cold and flu season, or when your roommates are sick, or when you feel like you might be getting a cold, do you often supplement with vitamin C?
Not at all.
I personally not, but I do know that my roommates always say, you have to go get some vitamin C.
Yeah, some gummies. Yeah, or some emergency or some airborne. It's a common behavior to supplement and maybe like what we call super supplement with vitamin C when we think we're getting sick. So there's a lot of research. There's been systematic reviews and meta-analyses on the efficacy of vitamin C to prevent colds. And the answer is, don't waste your money. If you're using vitamin C to prevent a cold, vitamin C is a water-soluble vitamin. So when you take it, your body's going to use up what it needs, and then the excess is going to come out, and you're basically going to create really expensive pee if you take too much, right? But there is some research and evidence that vitamin C can shorten the duration of a cold and shorten the severity of a cold. And the mechanism of action for that, we think, is that it creates a histamine response in your body, right? So it works like an antihistamine, similar to like Benadryl. And so it can make symptoms more mild and maybe make your cold last for a shorter duration of time, but it's not going to prevent a cold. The other one is elderberry. Elderberry, it's usually taken as a syrup supplement. It tastes really good. It's sweet. It's like one of those supplements where people don't mind taking it. And it's really high in antioxidants.
Okay.
So there was a randomized trial that took participants with flu-like symptoms, and we randomized them into two groups, placebo and treatment. The treatment group got the elderberry syrup. The placebo group got just a sweetened syrup with no active ingredients in it. And what the study found is those that got the elderberry syrup, their cold-like symptoms on average lasted 4 days less. So it did help to shorten the duration of a cold. Does that mean that you have to take elderberry syrup every single day as a supplement, or vitamin C every single day as a supplement? Not necessarily. Your best way to use it so that you're not wasting money is to really just use them if and when you have a cold, to help shorten the duration of that cold, to help you get better faster, because that's the only evidence for efficacy of use that we have for those supplements. Do you need to take a daily multivitamin to be healthy and to prevent a cold? The answer is maybe, right?
Okay.
The only way to know if you have any nutrient deficiencies is to get a physical and have your blood tested. Most Americans, most individuals living in developed countries don't need to take supplements. What we do need to do is eat a healthy, varied, adequate diet. So getting those nutrients, vitamins, minerals, energy substrates is best through our diet, not through a pill or a supplement. Now, if you have your blood drawn and you have deficiencies, then obviously you need to do some supplementation and some dietary modification. A daily multivitamin isn't going to hurt you, but it's not necessarily going to give you the benefits that you think you need. And you don't have to spend a lot of money on an expensive multivitamin, right? A cheap over-the-counter, chewable is all that you really need. And it may help and it may not be necessary. It's really the unfortunate answer.
Yeah. One more subject I wanted to bring was and it comes up to one of your favorite class, you said, and because it's the cold weather, and because I know that students usually in cold season they just get close together, right? I wanted to talk about a little bit about sexual advice that you would have for them, and anything you can say about it, right?
Okay. So you guys were laughing, but when we look statistically, the months with the highest rates of conception, so the months where pregnancy happens at the highest rates are November and December, right? People are coming in from the cold and they're keeping each other warm, quite literally. So I think most college-age students right now are not actively trying to conceive and not actually trying to become pregnant. The unfortunate statistic, though, is that half of all pregnancies in the U.S. are unplanned and unintended. But pregnancy is very preventable. Beyond pregnancy, there's also that risk of sexually transmitted infection.
True.
And individuals ages 15 to 24 make up half of all new cases of newly reported sexually transmitted infections. So protecting your reproductive health, preventing sexually transmitted infection, and preventing pregnancy is really important. Especially now when we know that the statistically, Americans are most likely to become pregnant in this season.
Sure.
So I think one of the easiest things to do is to have protected sex.
Right.
And that means using barrier methods of contraception that also prevent against the spread of sexually transmitted infections. The most commonly used method would be the male condom. You also have the female condom as an option, but it's not a highly used option. Here on campus, I'm really proud to report that last year we started a on-campus condom distribution program. I don't think a lot of people know about the program because we don't advertise it. Our main form of advertising is word of mouth. We started with 3 distribution sites: Gentry Center, the Women's Center, and we had a dispenser in Henkel for our athletics community. At the end of last year, it was requested that we remove the dispenser in Henkel. Athletics decided that they didn't want it there anymore, so we removed it and we relocated that dispenser, and we put up new dispensers in 3 dorms on campus.
Okay.
So there's a dispenser now in Boyd Hall, in the new dorm, and in Henkel. We hope that by the end of this year we'll be in all of the dorms and maybe even in the apartments. But the condom distribution program was grant funded, so that grant only provided a finite amount of money, which we've spent all of it. So housing is looking to use some of their housing funds to purchase dispensers for the dorms that don't currently have them. And then we have an amazing community partner, My House, who provides all of the condoms for us. So as long as they can get dispensers, we can make sure that those will be kept full. So if you don't know about the condom distribution program, it's called the Tennessee State University Safer Sex Initiative. We have work study students that help to monitor the levels of condoms, keep them refilled. We have great community partners. And I think especially in this current climate, post Roe v. Wade and the overturning of Roe v. Wade, protecting your reproductive health is more important than ever. Right. So if you don't know that we have condoms on campus, we do. They are free. You can help yourself to as many as you want. And if you have specific condom needs, please feel free to reach out to me. I have female condoms that you can come and grab from my office, but I also have condoms for individuals who are allergic to latex, so latex-free condoms. Latex allergies are very common. So come and see me, reach out to me via email, or you can come and visit me in Gentry, room 328, and I will be happy to provide you with whatever needs you have to protect your reproductive health.
Okay, well, that's amazing, and we're very grateful for that. So thank you.
Thank you.
And just to close up, what are some of the advices that you would tell your kids and husband to live a healthy life?
Okay. My students listen a lot better than my family, I think. But it's a good segue that we moved into talking about protecting your reproductive health, because I now have a teenager. And so these very conversations that I've been having for a long time with my students, I'm now having with my oldest son. He's a sophomore in high school, and he is starting to date. And I know that it's in his near future to start to have to make really important choices for his reproductive health. But I'm really proud of the fact that we have a relationship where we have very open lines of communication. So we talk about sexually transmitted infections. We talk about using condoms. And he is at a point where he knows a lot more than his peers, and he's really well educated. So he can be a really good resource for his peers.
Right.
Sex ed in Tennessee is really limited, right? And legally, educators in our K-12 setting can't talk about a lot. Our state laws really prohibit that. So if you have a trusted peer who has medically accurate information That's amazing.
Yes.
But also, we can't skirt over the importance of parents having these conversations and opening this communication with their peer. I think a lot of parents don't feel equipped or don't know how to initiate these conversations. And I think the best way is to let it happen organically. I think that's one of for me personally, the best things that came out of COVID. We were all home together. We had lunch together every day. I was teaching from home and they were learning from home. So Diesel and I had lunch every single day. And we were talking about COVID vaccines. And talking about COVID vaccines helped us segue really naturally into talking about the Gardasil vaccine, which protects against HPV, the virus that causes genital warts, but also the virus that causes a lot of cancers for men and women, cervical cancer for women, and throat and mouth cancers for men. And so as we were talking about vaccines, I could talk about sexually transmitted infections really naturally. Right. And I didn't have to have all this pressure about sitting him down and talking about the birds and the bees. It just happened naturally and organically. So parents need to kind of be mindful and find these opportunities to talk about this in a non-threatening, really open way with their teens. And I've been able to do that. I hope I can do that again with Driver, but he's a very different he's a different person than Diesel, and so he is very strong-willed. And I've learned with Driver that whatever I say, he's going to do the opposite. So I worry that if I talk about protecting his reproductive health, he's going to do the exact opposite. So I'm going to have to, in the coming years, really spend some time thinking about how I'm going to talk about sex with him. I also want to segue into, because we're talking about sexual and reproductive health, some of the headlines that have come out recently in the news. Okay. Yesterday, the big sexual and reproductive health related headline that was in the news was this report that was released by the CDC, talking about this tenfold increase in newborn syphilis cases that they detected in last year in 2022 in the U.S.
Oh, I didn't see.
Yeah, syphilis cases in 2022 rose, and they were 10 times higher than they were 10 years ago in 2012. And the main underlying cause, according to their report, for this drastic rise in newborn syphilis cases is the lack of prenatal care in the U.S. Okay. Right? We're the only developed nation in the world that doesn't have single-payer socialized health care. And because of that, a lot of people fall through the cracks. And there's a lot of women in our country that don't get early and adequate prenatal care. And what we're seeing is that lack of care is affecting their unborn children. Syphilis can be treated during pregnancy. It's highly treatable with antibiotics. It's a bacterial infection, so we can give pregnant women antibiotics to treat syphilis to prevent the spread to their unborn child. But if they're not getting prenatal care, it's not getting detected, and then we can't treat it. And so that's unfortunately really, really sad, right? 3,700 babies last year were born with prenatal syphilis. And 3,700 babies it could have been easily avoided if their moms were getting care and their moms received treatment during pregnancy.
Oh, that is a really scary thing if you think about it.
Yeah, it's a scary thing, but it's also important to think about as we go into 2024. Right. Because I want all of our students to know that voting is so important. And if you care about any of the topics that we talked about, put that energy and that care into voting for candidates that support these views and these opinions about health, about healthcare, about reproductive health, about access to healthcare, about student loans. Put all that energy into deciding who you're going to vote for, because the election is right around the corner.
That is very true. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much, Dr. Dickson. This is very...
This was fun. Thank you for having me.
We're gonna have you probably again.
Okay.
We have a lot of fun topics.
Happy to come back.
Okay, well, we're definitely gonna invite you again because you have a lot of fun topics to talk about.
Yes.
So, thank you one more time and have a great day.
Thanks all.
Have a good day, yo.